Army Private First Class Bradley Manning pled and was found guilty of multiple counts of espionage. But he was not found guilty of the most serious charge, aiding the enemy, which could have meant life in prison. 20 witnesses are expected to testify during the sentencing phase of his trial. Here with details on the implications of that trial is military law attorney Gary Barthel. Gary, welcome.
Thank you.
Manning acknowledged he was giving Wikileaks more than 700,000 documents, classified information, reports, and a video. Why wasn't that enough, or why didn't prosecutors say that they could prove he was guilty in aiding the enemy?
The reason is because in the offense of aiding the enemy, the government has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had the knowledge that the information that he was releasing was going into the hands of the enemy. And according to Manning, that was never his intent. His intent was to provide this information out to a website dump site, and he had no intention of harming anybody, or it wasn't his intent that that information end up in the hands of the enemy.
So there wasn't enough evidence to prove
Correct.
to prove that. He was found guilty in 17 of the 22 espionage charges.
That's correct.
And he had pled guilty to those. So would this really be considered sort of a win for the government, even because he already admitted to doing that?
Yeah, he pled guilty to 10 of the charges, and some of those charges were accepted and substituted. He didn't plead to all of the charges as they were originally pled. But some of the charges he did plead to included one espionage charge, and for espionage, the government only had to prove that he had some reasonable belief that that the documents he was releasing could end up in the hands.
Okay, so
that's
just
the
the plausibility there.
Right.
What about the thinking behind having a judge trial? Of course, this is in a military court versus a jury of his peers.
Well, I think in this case, he definitely was entitled to a jury trial, but I think the defense made the right choice in going with the judge alone version of the trial in this case. I think if Manning had gone with a jury trial, I think a jury of his peers may, number one, they don't have the same experience and exposure to criminal cases that the judge does. But two, I think they would probably be more angered by what he did, and
maybe more emotional. It might be
more emotional. They may have known people who have died in action during the war, and although that they're not supposed to carry those feelings in, sometimes it's hard to separate those feelings. And I think he could have got a harsher sentence and maybe even a different verdict if he had gone with a jury.
Now, the verdict is just the first in this process, in this trial, this military trial. What's the possible outcomes of these sentencing hearings? What happens?
With regard to the sentencing hearing is a separate phase of the trial. It's set up pretty much like the first phase, the fact-finding phase of the trial. Each side presents evidence. It's very adversarial. The prosecution will present evidence likely to show the aggravation and the damage that was done by the release of these documents. The defense, on the other hand, is going to present evidence that is going to tend to humanize Manning. They're going to show evidence that, hey, he's young, he's inexperienced, his intent all along was never that anybody be harmed as a result of his releasing these documents.
How much time does he face?
Right now he's looking at 136 years in prison, but he's also looking at a dishonorable discharge, reduction to the lowest grade, and forfeitures of pay, and possibly fines.
How is Manning's trial different from the government's pursuing the Edward Snowden, a former CIA agent who released classified information about NSA? How are those two different?
Well, one, Snowden would be tried in a federal district court, and in federal district court you have sentencing guidelines. Manning is being tried in a military court, and there are no sentencing guidelines with the military system, and so whatever evidence is presented at the sentencing phase of the trial is the evidence that the judge is going to rely on when she issues her sentence.
So a couple differences there. How do you think these trials will impact military whistleblower in the future?
Well, I'm not sure that this really amounts to a whistleblower case. The military has systems in place so that if people have issues with whatever is going on, they can request mass up the chain of command, vent those issues, and try to get those issues resolved. That wasn't done in this case. like Snowden, Manning had a personal agenda. For whatever reason,
yeah,
he
which is
decided
why I
he
use
took
that
it
term,
upon
because
himself.
his supporters say that, but you're right, not
That's
a
correct.
correct term. Well, I want to let folks know there's a whole lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Military law attorney Gary Barthel, thanks so much.
Thank you.